Well, I think he owes an explanation to the American people, and we need to hear it.
What do you think of how the White House has been responding so far?
I don't think we've had that explanation yet.
Well, as you've been hearing here tonight, there's been a great deal of talk and analysis about how Donald Trump's been conducting himself this past week. What he said to Russian officials, to James Comey, and then what he said afterwards, both in person and on Twitter. But what about the White House? Is there a clear strategy around all this? And can it get Trump through this latest controversy unscathed? To help unpack some of this, Nicole Hemmer, a historian of American politics, the Republican Party, and party politics. We spoke earlier. Nicole, you're a political historian, so I want to ask you about the comment that Donald Trump made today. He said, no politician in history has been treated worse or more unfairly. Is there any truth to that?
Well, I think that probably reflects Donald Trump's appreciation for superlatives when he's talking about his presidency. Look, presidents have taken it on the chin a lot from the opposition party, from media. Thomas Jefferson at the beginning of the 19th century was dragged through the mud by the opposition party. Richard Nixon, of course, would put in a claim for being the worst treated. Trump has not had a good time with the media. Part of that is of his own making. Part of that is because journalists see him as, many journalists see him as unfit for the presidency. So it's not been an easy road for him, but maybe not historic. Yeah,
and there are lots of Republicans who'd like to hit the reset button on the whole presidency, the way it's got off to this start. But is that possible now, especially with talk today of the former FBI director testifying about what's in those memos? The story has legs, as we like to say in the world of journalism. So what's the strategy for Trump now?
Well, that's actually a really good question. I think that the news from the last 24 hours or so has shown that this has really taken a turn, and there is no hitting the reset button, as you say, because what we've seen in the past is that when a story breaks, when a scandal breaks, the Trump administration spins. They come out immediately and they hit back hard. But it's been more or less radio silence from the administration, from many top Republicans since this news came out. And I think that's an indication that they know that this is different, that this is going to lead to investigations, subpoenas, and they need to be very careful about what they say, lest what they say gets used against them in a court of law.
Well, you know, we've seen a lot of Republicans, key Republicans, still supporting him, still not swaying away from the presidency. I'm wondering at what point could that change?
Well, I think it's going to be based on their calculations of how much he's hurting their legislative agenda. Impeachment, if that's what we're talking about here, the removal of the president, that is a political decision. It takes the House to pass a bill of impeachment. It takes the Senate, 67 votes in the Senate to impeach. So it would require Republicans to be on board and, in fact, to be leading the charge toward impeachment. And that's damaging to them and to their political prospects. So it would take them reaching the point where they saw themselves with no other option, that they needed to move forward with impeachment in order to do anything else as legislators. So I think we're still, if that's in the offing, it's a long ways away still.
Well, we were speaking to one of our correspondents in Washington earlier, talking about how the Trump base has really been saying over and over again, this is fake news. The leaks, the Russian intelligence, all of this is fake news. But does that carry any weight within the Republican establishment itself? Are they seeing this as just another media attack on the presidency?
Well, I think the framework of this as a media attack has some legs because it's very popular with the base. But I don't think that's how Republicans in office are primarily seeing it. I think they understand quite well what the legal ramifications and the political ramifications of Trump's decision to fire Comey, to get himself involved in the investigation, to share intelligence with Russians in the White House. I think they understand the bigger import of all of that. So the same thing happened with Richard Nixon during Watergate. There was a tendency to talk about it amongst Republicans and conservatives as a media issue, that the media were attacking the president. I'm not sure that that's going to hold a lot of water in this case. It will be something that you hear repeatedly, and it is something that is going to, I think, be the dominant framework on the right, that this is a media attack against Trump. But I do think that Republican politicians are going to have to deal with it on a more serious level.
In a word, do you believe Donald Trump will be president on this day next year?
I do.
Nicole, great to talk to you tonight. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.